China Über Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! Well, a good afternoon to you. It's Thursday, time for China Über Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff, along with my guests, Nan Su, a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, a survivor of the re-education camps of the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. We have quite a program for you today. Nan Su is in the studio with me, and we have Amy Howe on the KSCO live line. And boy, I tell you, there's been a lot of discussion. Our former president has come up with a suggestion that we have talked about on this program. Very interesting line of reasoning, to say the very least.
And actually, our caller also called in to talk about this debt cancellation, just default all the debt that we owe China and
start over.
Yeah, start over. And guess what? Former President Trump actually had a good reason. We are going to take that debt cancellation as the down payment paid by China for the damages and losses caused by the pandemic.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that, and also we have a special guest today.
We do indeed, from
Hoover Institute.
Yeah, the senior. He's a senior fellow in residence in classics and military history at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. Victor Hanson. Wow. He's also done some academic work at. For instance, he's the professor of classics emeritus at the California State University, Fresno, and a nationally syndicated columnist for the Tribune Media Services Organization. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him later on in the program. But first, as always, we check in with Amy Howe. Amy has firsthand experience. She spent 10 years, at least, in the Cultural Revolution re-education camps under Chairman Mao. Anyway, we start every program with Amy's stories because they always fit every time with what we're talking about. And it almost doesn't matter what we're talking about. Amy's stories always fit. Amy, how are you today?
I'm fine, great. And today I'm going to continue in the story last week, the medicine woman.
Great. Terrific.
Just to refresh our memory, and since the medicine woman, we use her medicine to save the woman and deliver the baby, and after that bleeding and stop the bleeding and save the mother and the child. So it's very good. So since then, I always wanted to learn the Chinese herb medicine from her. And also, I'm just curious. Always curious. Curiosity kills the cat. And so I want to know why she speaks Mandarin. It's not the local minority Thai or Wa, different languages. So I was wondering, how does she end up here in that Yunnan province in the village? Also, why they sent her to live in top the hill, which was nobody else lived there, is kind of punishment. So what did she do wrong, and they wanted to punish her? So I visiting her quite often. I just wanted her to teach me how to find those wonderful life-saving medicine. And for the malaria, for leprosy, and the other things. And so one day, and in the clinic, we had the other two local doctors and another student. I mean, we are from Shanghai. We got the same school and classmate, but he's about 3 years older than me. So 4 of us. And then we very much wanted to get this woman also joining the team and to save people's life. But the CCP, the branch in that area, they're not allowed. So they say that she's a kind of a class enemy. So I just more curious about why they label her as a class enemy. And seems like all the people in the village, the peasants, they all love her because she saved people's life, right? So one day I get a chance to have a chat with her. I said, you speak a very good Mandarin, so seems like you're not from local. He said, yes. He said, I'm from Sichuan province, which was very close to the Yunnan province. And she told me before communists took over, because the Yunnan province, they so-called, the communists took over in the early 1950s, not the 1949 immediately. So they have some kind of, they call peace negotiation or whatever with those, tribe leaders in the Yunnan province. So it's like the 1950s. So she said that the Sichuan province was 1949 already belonged to Communist Party. And so she said that her father is an herb doctor. And also family own quite a bit of land in Sichuan province. And the land, they grow the rice and also grow some medicine. And so the 1949 communists took over, so they later on they started land reform. And so that movement is just took away from land law and gave it to the poor peasants, divided. So that's then they gonna arrest the land law and just executed them, including some of their children and grandchildren, whole family. So her father was a doctor. So before these things happening, and all the villagers, because he saved lots of people's life, so they want to save his life. So one of this communist officer is a local guy. He joined the Communist Party, and so he gave him a warning. He said that next couple of days they're gonna have that. They not just took away your land, your property, and they're gonna execute all your family. You better leave. So they left the whole family. They can't bring anything. They just left the village, and then all the way walking and go across the mountains, the rivers, I don't know how many miles, and heading this Yunnan province and those the jungles. So they think that they can hide somewhere, maybe eventually escape from China. Because at that time when the communists took over Yunnan province, and lots of territory was belonged to Burma, and because the border country is Burma. So they were still negotiate which village will belong to which country. So the people live there, they didn't know anything about the Communist Party. They don't even considering themselves as in Chinese, because they all have a different minorities, speak different languages. So this family, this Ahmad's family, they believe if they can come into Yunnan province, maybe eventually they can cross the border to Burma or some other countries, but they're not sure it's still going to be in Chinese territory or going to be a Vietnamese territory. So anyway, they end up with this village. Also on the way, they just they give people, they treat the sick people, and so villagers were very nice. They give them food, shelter, so it's no problem. Finally, they arriving and this area is a bigger valley, and the farming and rice have 3 crops a year, so it seems like a pretty well-to-do. It's a Thai village. And so they settled down there, but they don't have anything. That time in Yunnan province, the land reform not start yet. And so the one of the landlord and give them a piece of land. He say you can, do something and to maybe farming and some vegetables and maybe some medicines. But we need you because we need you performing as a doctor, herb doctor. So they get settled down there. But not too long, and this reform, land reform movement coming to Yunnan. So unfortunately, the village were, the government decided and talked to the Burma government, decided this village will belong to China and not Burma. Just across the mountain, you can see is a Burma. So, well, that's it. And so they will belong to China and belong under the communist control. So they started this land reform. And so, but they from outside and nobody know because they don't have anything locally, right? And but nobody know what did they do before. So they ask everybody had to confess, which village you come from, where, which province. So if you had to tell the truth, so they're threatening them, say they will find out if they tell the lie. And so I think, and they're scared, so they just told the truth, saying they would, escape from Sichuan, and but didn't say they have a land or something. They said that they just herb doctor or anything. So anyway, they didn't, to classify them as class enemy. So they just let them live because they need a doctor. So he just performing and to treat the patients, everything. So still let them live until a Cultural Revolution happened, 1966. And then bunch of Rega. I was surprised the Rega got that far. And they come in, they burn those temple, Buddhism temple. Also, they have a Christian church in the mountain. And they burned that too. And then they tied up all the people, landlords, rich farmers, the class enemy, they call that. And also somebody tell the Red Guard and said, though these people from Sichuan, they are suspicious. Maybe they are also the class enemy. So they just arrested them, tied them up, and wanted them to confess. So, and torture them. And I think, they ask their family member to denounce each other, also to tell, you interrogate the son, and then they ask whether your father was doing there in Sichuan or whatever. So somehow they broke in the family, and then they get some words out saying their father used to own the land, or grandfather owned a lot of land, or something like that, the story. And so they just wanted to execute it, and the father. And so they had to escape again, but at that time there's no way to go. If you cross the mountain to other side of it, if you're successful, but if not, so definitely you'll be shot. So they didn't do that. So eventually, and this doctor, this Ama's father and the mother, and then both, and take the poison and suicide. Because they're doctors, the herb, some poison herbs, they make a soup and they drink it. So it's very sad. So Ama is the only one left there. And because I think for other reasons, they still let her live. is they need somebody still, is somebody sick or something, and she can provide them some medicine and to looking for those herb medicine and to save some life. So she's still alive. And then, but the one time, I think during the Cultural Revolution, one of this army officer, they also coming that time, the Liberation Army, and then join the called the Revolution Committee, and to rule the villages. So one of this Liberation Army, the officer got sick, and so Amma, I think it's malaria. So Amma gave him some medicine, but probably too late. You know, Chinese medicine, they do have those combination of the medicine, at least 10 or 20 ingredients and combination cocktail, and you drink those tea and can treat the malaria, but also leprosy too. But it took a while, you know, depend on how strong you are, how long you can hold, and will medicine will, you know, take effect. So this guy died. This army officer died. So then they bring her and give her some poison, see, because her father was a class enemy and a suicide and drink the poison. So she probably poisoned that guy. So they just tied her up, and then the punishment is send her to a leprosy village on top of the mountain. Those people are lepers, and they are waiting to die. They put them in the cage, and don't let them come out. If they come out, they say going to infect the other people. So they put those people in a cage on the mountain, just waiting to die, or maybe ate by an animal or mountain lions or whatever. And so they send her there, and but she knows some medicines, and so those lepers, not everybody, they not dying, but they're not dead yet. So they will let her out of the cage and begging her to get some medicine to save their life. So she did actually save some people, but not everybody. Right? And so eventually she moved to another on top of the mountain, and she just lived there by herself. Some village down the mountain, down the hill, and they all come and give her food and just helping her because she gave them medicine. So that's why she still survived, and that's her story for today.
Wow. I have so many questions. I really do. It's
sure.
Wow. I don't even know where to start. The whole idea that the government will not allow people to have the proper medicine, to not have the proper, and then they end up, people get so frustrated they end up committing suicide. It's just amazing to me.
It's just not imaginable for Americans who grew up in the United States, but those things did happen in China.
Oh, I completely believe it.
Yeah. Even I live in Shanghai, never go there. I never would know those things. You know, even my parents never experienced that. Because I never got that. They went to Kunming, but it's a city. Never go this kind of place. Never see, you know, the bottom on the food chain, how the people survive, you know, how to live, you know, that kind of things.
Well, you know, Amy, we forget that, you know, the United States is a very big country, but we forget that China goes across 8 time zones. It's really big. So you could grow up in Shanghai and not know what's going on 3 provinces over ever.
Yeah, also speak different language.
Yeah.
It's like a different country.
Yeah,
absolutely.
different dialects.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing. Well, Amy, We will look forward to how your story of this sad story you told us will dovetail with what we're going to talk about today, because I know it will. We do have our guest online. Nan, if you'll do the honors of telling us a little about our guest before we bring him on.
Yes, it's really our pleasure to have Professor Victor Davis Hanson joining us today. And he is the current chairman of Military History Contemporary Conflict Working Group in Hoover Institute, and he's also an expert in the area of free market capitalism and socialism, as well as national security. Welcome to our program, Professor Hanson.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Hanson, today our host is Billy Graff, along with another guest, that's Amy Howe. So we three are going to have a conversation with you. Hopefully, you will give us lessons, just like you gave lessons anywhere and everywhere. And our subject started with the debt cancellation. Our former President Trump had a speech Saturday before last week, talking about we're going to default all the debt from China and taking that amount of money as a down payment paid by Chinese government for the loss and damages caused by the pandemic. So tell us, what do you think about the idea?
Well, I don't really consider ideas that are put forward that have zero chance of being accepted. And I don't think that, it's predicated on the idea that Chinese feel bad about what happened and they want to make recompense, or they're going to be forced to make recompense. And I don't think either of them are true. I don't think they feel bad about their role in the virus leaving Wuhan. And they don't feel that even if they did feel bad, that there would be any way they would be willing to pay for anybody. So I guess the bottom line is the narrative has radically changed, though, from the lab having no role at all in the spread of COVID to most likely it did have a role. And now the question is, to what degree did the Chinese know that and lie about it? And to what degree was the Chinese military partnering with their virologists for gain and function research, and to what degree were people in the United States aware of it and funded some of it? And these are pretty explosive revelations, and we haven't got the full story yet, but I think we will eventually.
Dr. Hanson, what do you think about the whole idea? How does academia in the United States and around the world think about the likelihood that this did start in a Chinese lab and somehow got out?
Well, I think everybody thinks if there's a level 4 lab and it's in Wuhan and they are studying gain of function aspects of coronaviruses, and this was a very lethal and easily transmissible coronavirus, and there were no bats or pangolins that anybody has ever found with this particular genome, then there must be a connection. And so the question is, why did people get so alarmist when people wrote that or said that? And I think Donald Trump, who tried to reach out to the Chinese at least until March of 2020, at that point he made the connection based what he said or intelligence report. As soon as he said that, everybody said, if Trump says that, then it has to be a lie. So in lockstep fashion, without thinking, they just said, if you even make a connection, then you're a Trump conspiracist. And then second, in addition to that, the Chinese were very clever. They said, as they filtered out American left-wing propaganda, they said, anybody who suggests that's a racist. And they used many of the talking points of the left that had said the same thing. And then finally, we didn't know really, although the information was in theory available, we didn't know that Dr. Fauci at the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases was funneling money to Peter Daszak and his EcoHealth Alliance to pursue gain-of-function research, which was banned in the United States, and then he was subsidizing researchers at this very lab. So we really had people at the highest levels of the American government and the medical profession who were assuring us there was no connection, that anybody who said there was a connection was a conspiracist. And when you put all three of those influences together, it was almost impossible to get the truth. And now, of course, we have Fauci's emails. Donald Trump is no longer in office, and people see through the Chinese propaganda, so we're back to square one. But for a year and a half, we've just been censored or denied a fair hearing, we being the people, the majority of Americans who thought there was always a connection.
Amy, you have a question?
Yes, Professor, I have a question for you. And even though we have overwhelming evidence about this virus, how to start, and then all kind of things, but you think is any way our new administration, Biden administration, will really further investigate it?
Well, only in this sense that during the campaign and up to the election, the Biden campaign was saying that Donald Trump was a conspiracist, that he was a racist, and to prove those allegations or to support them, they said, and his nuts and his deplorable supporters are trying to blame China for a gain in function or an engineered virus, and there's no proof for that. I'm just quoting now what everybody said in the major outlets. And so they encouraged that because they found it useful. And then there's also the fact that for a variety of reasons, they adopted Anthony Fauci as their person or their icon of rationalism versus Donald Trump, and to a lesser degree, Dr. Birx. And they demonized Trump's other advisor, Scott Atlas, who had given advice and information exactly opposite of what Fauci was saying. So they were so heavily invested in these narratives that they just couldn't admit what the evidence showed. And then when it became untenable, because there were so many leaks, and we had people in the State Department and the Pentagon who had access to intelligence, and we had Fauci's emails, and we had the corruption with a Lancet letter that was solicited by Dr. Daszak, and we had the phony Chinese Communist investigation at Wuhan. The evidence became so overwhelming that now they're kind of embarrassed, but they've never apologized, and they've never explained to us why it was not allowed to discuss it in a free society.
Go ahead, Amy.
Just one more question. So right now the G7 meeting, and not including China, and you think, I know that in China, the propaganda, everything, they was kind of concerned, and then they have make this cartoon says Last Supper, and then the table was Chinese map, all the Western they get together and to divide China, and that kind of thing. Right now the reactions, but is this meeting and really will do something to this against China and to eliminate their dominations?
Well, China, for example, poses a much greater threat to Russia. It's not only larger than does Russia, and it has a larger population, a larger economy, but it's a communist. Russia is a corrupt oligarchy. It's not Soviet, but this is a communist apparatus that controls China, and they're very different. And most importantly, they have a very much more sophisticated understanding of the West and the United States in particular. They're not 360 70,000 Russian students in the United States. There are China. So on the one hand, they say that we're a racist, dangerous country, but if we were really racist and dangerous, they would not put their most select youth in this country and to face those supposed conditions. So they understand how the left works. They're leftists themselves. So they are channeling this propaganda about we are racist, that a bunch of white people under the Trump administration were fostering anti-Asian hate crimes. When they went to Alaska and the Anchorage Mini Summit, they completely adopted that narrative that you're racist, Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. So we have to be very careful with the Chinese because they understand the United States, how it works in a way the Soviets never did. And they understand the left, and the left is in control right now in the United States of Wall Street, the corporate boardroom, professional sports, the campus, academia, K through 12, foundations, media, Silicon Valley, and they understand that. So whether it's compromising American business people to do business and make money in China, or to recycle propaganda, or to tell the NBA, you're going to criticize the United States, but don't say one word about China or the Uyghurs, or telling Hollywood, if you're gonna produce a movie, we don't want any dark-skinned actors because it doesn't sell as well in China. And they all go along with it, even as they damn conservatives as racist or prejudiced people that don't like China. So they're very adept at understanding how to confuse and warp the United States in terms of propaganda and narratives and media.
Professor Hanson, China just passed a so-called anti-foreign sanctions law. That I think that's on June 10th. So the rubber stamp People's Congress passed that legislation. Basically, it's going to require anybody living in China, regardless if you are a Chinese citizen or if you are foreigners living in China, or if you are organizations originally formed as a Chinese corporation, or any foreign corporations from the West that doing business in China. That basically anyone that's in China, or any organization that's in China, to follow the anti-foreign sanctions law. So, for example, if United States or the Western world taking any sanctions against the Chinese regime because of human rights violation, the genocide, things like that, or Hong Kong's human rights issue, then and when Beijing Chinese government trying to counter these sanctions, the entire country, including everyone, especially including the foreigners from the West, as well as the foreign corporations doing business in China, all supposed to follow that law and take efforts to be in the position against those foreign sanctions. What do you think, that kind of action from the Chinese regime, it's going to impact the future relationship between China and the West?
Yeah, I think the Chinese apparatus has made a conscious decision that the risk of alienating Western governments because of this new law versus the benefit that they can control what hundreds of millions of people think through economic coercion outweighs it. And by that I mean they're basically telling people like Bill Gates or Michael Bloomberg, you become multi-billionaires through your investments, or the NBA in China. And now's the time to stand up. And you've done a good job so far in defending our interests when we were accused of having a role that we didn't disclose about the COVID virus. But we expect more for you. So all of you people now who are making money in China, and you're very influential in American society, both as you live in China, but more importantly here. And this includes universities, by the way. we're going to now overtly, in the open, demand fealty from you. And it'll be interesting because what it replaces is a de facto system where Michael Bloomberg or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates could act as if they were disinterested. You know, Bill Gates would say, China's really doing pretty well on the virus. Let's not criticize them. Or Michael Bloomberg could say, well, you know, really, they have a certain way of being accountable. They're not exactly anti-democratic, but it puts more pressure on them to be honest and to come out and say, do you support this or do you not? And they have such huge financial interest in it. China bets that they'll be openly subservient to Beijing, and I think they're right because of the amounts of money that are involved. I mean, they own the National Basketball League essentially. They de facto own Hollywood. They have enormous, I can tell you, for someone who's been in academia for 40 years, they have enormous influence on our major universities, both because of the number of students are there, the number of professorships they endow, their Confucius Institutes. So they have reached a point now where they feel they're basically saying, I don't think we have to be covert anymore. Why do we have to play this game of denial? We're going to run the world anyway, and these people need us, and we're not going to humiliate ourselves. We're going to humiliate them, and it's going to give us even more power when these powerful institutions openly have to follow our rules. And they kind of do now, if you think of what Steve Kerr or LeBron James said openly, or what Michael Bloomberg has said, or Warren Buffett, or all of them. But now it's going to be very, very embarrassing and humiliating for Europeans and Americans to just openly say what we already knew, that they're bought and sold by China. And China wants that to be known now. They want everybody to know that so that there's no fuzziness, there's no misinformation. And that reflects a new confidence and anger on their part and a calculated risk that they can get away with it. And I think they can get away with it.
Wow, Professor Hanson, I was going to ask you another question, but I'm just going to, from what you just said, I have to change my question to ask you this. This sounds a lot like how the mafia used to operate. It seems to me that China has gotten so powerful, I can't think of another word, around the world that they think they can do whatever they want.
That's because they can do whatever they want. I mean,
is there any way to change that, in your opinion?
There is, but you got to remember that we have 1/4 of the population of China, and although we have a larger GDP and we're more productive, that's not insured. And here's what I mean: their military is merit-based, ours and ideological, but ours is now woke. Their entrance exams to universities are merit-based. Ours are not anymore. They're stressing science and engineering. We're not. And we owe $30 trillion at a time when they are getting more and more leverage over our debt. So in their way of thinking, they see us as complacent, decadent, a multiracial democracy that's chaotic, and they feel that the world will be theirs very soon. I think they're preempting a little bit, and I think they would have been much wiser to play the old game where they said they had no territorial or global ambition and they admired the United States, because that's how they got where they were. But now they're openly defiant. And if you're a professor and you have a lot of foreign students in China, you will be told by an administrator not to flunk those students because they pay 10% surcharge on tuition. Or if you're a basketball player, that they will tell you, do not criticize China. It's much better for your Nike shoe sales to attack the United States. That sells shoes if you can say you're a dissident or you're, Black Lives Matter figure. But do not dare ruin our $5 billion market in China. So,
wow,
they have enormous power about everything.
Amy?
So, Professor, talking about the Confucius Institution, I remember when Trump administration was talking about end of 2020, they should be all out of the United States. Right now, after Biden becoming president, they still here now?
Well, it gets back to propaganda. So when that issue came up on campuses, and I'm only referencing my campus at Stanford University, then the answer said, oh, you're anti-intellectual. Confucius was a venerable philosopher. We're just trying to promote Chinese literature and Chinese values, traditional values. It has nothing to do with contemporary Communist Party or agendas in the modern world. We respect learning and we're ecumenical. And so everybody said, oh my gosh, here we are again, Donald Trump pursuing a racist agenda, anti-intellectual, anti-university, and who we have helping us? Of all people, the Chinese. They're here to help us. And then when you give them evidence, wait a minute, Stanford hired a neuroscientist that was not just a spy, but worked for the Chinese military as a professor, or Stanford accepted $60 million from companies related to the Chinese Communist Party and never reported it to the Department of Education. They just shrug and say, oh, that's no big thing. So the universities like Wall Street and corporate America and professional entertainment and sports, I think, have been so heavily leveraged by profits in China. And everybody knows what the Chinese are doing. The NBA thinks it's getting wealthy, but all they're doing is teaching the Chinese how to organize a Chinese National Basketball Association and how it's done and how the advertising, the merchandising is done. And then once it's mastered that, they will kick the NBA out because they really don't want, because their ideology is nationalist and in some ways racist. They don't want a bunch of Americans, especially African Americans, on their TV all day long. And they do the same thing with corporations. They go over there, they learn their technique, their product, and then they have a vested interest and then a definable interest, and then they expropriate the technology, and pretty soon they start gobbling up the percentage of ownership. And that's how they operate. And so that's what these naive people don't know. They think that they're partnering with wonderful businessmen or like-minded professors, but no. Even if somebody in China resents this, and there are people in China that resent this, it doesn't matter because they have no voice. They have a choice between following the party line or dying, and they're not going to die. And so when Dr. Fauci says, well, wait a minute, some of these researchers at the Wuhan lab we worked with for years, they're independent thinking. I just about laughed. I thought, those poor researchers, when somebody from the Chinese military walks across the corridor and says, this is what you're going to say, and this is what you're going to do, and if you don't like it, you and your family this is going to happen to you. And Fauci has no concept of that at all. And most Americans don't. They don't know what they're dealing with a communist government.
Now, Professor Hanson, it was good that you brought up the issue that the Confucius Institute's operation here in the universities in the United States. First of all, I want to say that the Confucius Institutes, they're not here to teaching Confucianism, right? They're not even practicing Confucianism in China
or Chinese culture, for that matter.
That's right. They are what they practice in China is a communism which was created by Karl Marx, who was a German. Now, the question to me is that I do think our professors and all these managers in our universities know that. I don't think they don't know that. And then is it just because we like the money floating from China? For example, the UC system, University of California, last year from 2020 to 2021 academic year, the total students in the campus was 85,000 students, while they have 25,600 students from China. That's like 9%. in the campus.
Yes.
And the total foreign students from all around the world is 41,000. So China, UC, University of California, accept more Chinese student as a foreign student than the rest of the world combined, other than China. So it's billions of dollars floating into UC. Is that the only reason all these managers, administrators, or professors that keep their eyesight blind when they see this issue?
That's one of two reasons. The other is, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think we appreciate how sophisticated Chinese propaganda is. And I'll give you an example. When you look at American popular culture and its impressions of communist China, they have perpetuated this idea that only people who support mainland China, communist China, Mao, are authentically woke, and they are more popular, and they demonize Taiwanese Americans because these are right-wingers and Chiang Kai-shek. But, wow, if you're Chinese and you're authentically Chinese, then you're part of that revolutionary tradition, anti-Western, anti-colonial, anti-Christian, anti-imperialism. And then we even see this phenomenon. I see it as I've taught in different universities with Chinese Americans of the second and third, even the fourth generation. I've known Chinese American students that don't know a word of Chinese. Their parents didn't know a word of Chinese, but they like to think that they have some kindred relationship with this revolutionary Chinese, powerful, wealthy regime, and they're embarrassed if their parents have Taiwanese relationships. So it's sort of like the Palestinians. I can meet people on campus who believe in democracy, they believe in consensual government, but they will trash Israel and identify with Hamas, even though they're a terrorist organization, as even the United Nations admits, because they feel it has fides or authenticity. And that's just a fact. So when you have a professor who is on campus at the Confucius Institute, and he will weigh in on maybe Black Lives Matter or Me Too or all of the global warming, he becomes one of the faculty. And then when we have an incident of a black male will attack an Asian American in San Francisco, they will call him up at the Confucius Institute and said, given your knowledge of the United States and China, what do you make of this? And he will say, this is part of a wider Trump-led climate of racism, so the individual perpetrator didn't really matter because of and then he will get accolades, and then it becomes presentable or acceptable to think of him not as a megaphone for Chinese communism and a conduit of money, which he is, but a legitimate faculty member that is woke and left-wing like everybody else. And it's really insidious how well China has done that. And if you complain about this, then if you're not Chinese, you're a racist. And if you are Chinese, then you're some kind of right-wing Christian missionary or Taiwanese counter-revolutionary. So one of the things that people should do constantly is contrast Taiwan with China and say, this is a democracy, this is how they handled COVID, this is how staunch an ally they have been in the United States, this is why they get along and can function as allies with Australia, South Korea, Japan, and we need to be much, much closer with Taiwan, and yet we're not.
Professor Hanson, Amy, we're out of time. Can I ask you if we can have you back on the program sometime? Because we have just scratched the surface. If you would be willing to come back, we would love to have you answer a few more questions.
Yeah, I can do that sometime. That'll be fine.
Terrific.
Thank you very much, Professor Hanson. It was really our pleasure having you in our program.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to have to take our break here, so we're going to be back on China Uber Alice in just a moment. We'll wrap up the first hour in just a couple of minutes.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. When the prospect of divorce becomes a reality, you need a partner that you can count on. If you're a man in this situation, consider contacting Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men navigate complex legal matters for 30 years.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's California attorneys. Online at CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com. 1455 Frazee Road, Suite 500, San Diego, California, 92108.
Etheric Networks Internet has been providing Internet for over 12 years to the Central Coast. We design our network to provide lower delay than the cable and the phone companies. We have a staff of over 30 trained professionals. We also use better quality power backup and networking equipment than most of our competitors. And if you mention KSCO, we'll give you $239 off of your installation. Since we last dropped into the studios of KSCO to record, we've added 3 new internet service technologies. Our G7 service, our 7th generation, our G8 service, and our fiber service, in addition to our flagship G6 long-range network. We have local technical support that's available 7/24. Importantly, Etheric offers the same speed on upload as download. We offer a symmetric service. Call 650-399-4200 or visit etheric.net online. That's ETHERIC.net. Don't forget to mention KSCO to receive your $239 discount on installation equipment. Happy surfing.
Cami Corvin is the executive producer for the Think Local First radio show. Join Cami each Saturday from 2 to 4 as she hosts what is going on in our community for local businesses and local issues. Think Local First is brought to you by Bruno's Bar and Grill in Scotts Valley, Togo's in Scotts Valley, Capitola and Watsonville, Tremonti Italian Restaurant in Santa Cruz, Back 9 Bar and Grill, and Cruz Coffee of Scotts Valley. Think Local First every Saturday on AM 1080 or KSCO.com.
Coast Paper and Supply is a local, family-owned supply business right here in Santa Cruz since 1948. They've been proudly serving the Central Coast through this COVID-19 pandemic. Sanitation is a serious concern during this pandemic, and Coast Paper and Supply is open to offer you the widest selection of janitorial supplies to be found anywhere. With their excellent selection of quality products and customer service, discover why many local businesses, schools, and households choose to shop at Coast Paper and Supply. You can find Coast Paper and Supply at 151 Josephine Street in Santa Cruz, open weekdays 8 to 4 p.m. Or you can give them a call at 831-423-3350. You can also check out their website at coastpapersupplyinc.com. That's Coast Paper and Supply, keeping local businesses and households supplied since 1948.
Well, that's our first hour of China Uber Alice for today. We'll be back with Nan and Amy in just a moment. If you want to find out more about the program, ChinaUberAlice.com is the website to go to. Town Hall News is coming up in just a moment. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. We invite you to stick around. We'll have some traffic information and a look at your weather. A very warm afternoon. Anyway, stick around. This is KSCO Santa Cruz.
Southbound Highway 1, coming off the Fish Hook, all the way through Bay Avenue. That's like an 11-minute delay to get through there. And that's not the half of it when it comes to Highway 1. From Castroville all the way to Freedom northbound 1 is absolutely at a standstill. I understand there was an accident that brought all this on to begin with, but it has gotten to be a real regular mess right now. It could take you an extra hour to get through that area. And moving on to more bad news, Highway 101 southbound through the Aromas area. That is looking like a 28-minute delay. And also Highway 101 southbound from South Coyote to Madrone. That is another 17-minute delay for you. Okay, your Central Coast weather for the rest of this afternoon. Sunny and hot. It's going to be 93 degrees is the temperature we're looking for here. And we're getting pretty darn close. It's 92 right now outside the KSCO studios. KSCO News Talk time right now is 3:06. Time for the second hour of China Uber Alice on KSCO.
Did you say 93 degrees?
Indeed I did, yes.
China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! Welcome to the second hour of China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff, your host, along with Nan Su, a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, first of my guests, and Amy Howe, a survivor of the re-education camps from the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao, my second guest. Our third guest has wandered into the studio, as he frequently does. He's our academic China guy from the University of California, Santa Cruz. He has a degree in Chinese literature. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That is right.
And that's Michael Olson. And, of course, as is frequently happens on this program, after the first hour, I sit through the news and I wonder how much more scary it could be. And we listened to Mr. Hanson, Professor Hanson today, and it can get more scary.
It was pretty bad, and I think that Amy also mentioned a part of the big news that we didn't really have time to explain what it was. Right, the Last Supper. So basically, that was last week. One of the Chinese cartoon painter, should I say, a painter? So
Jia, I think.
Yeah. He created a painting. Basically,
it's a cartoon of the Last Supper.
Yeah. It's basically a big table that's sit around by 9 animals. They are the national animals representing Germany,
different countries.
Basically the G7. There's 7 industrial countries plus India and Australia. Right, so you have elephant representing India, then you have rooster representing France, and then we have basically American sitting in the center of the table. That's a hawk, right? And then then you have a wolf representing Italy, and a kangaroo representing Australia, and then you have
a dog.
A beaver representing Japan. Canada, so on and so forth. So,
but there's no panda.
There's no panda, of course. Well, that's basically the
lion for British.
Right. So basically, on the table, it's a cake. The cake is in the shape of China's map. So they're so basically these basically it says that these 9 countries are trying to divide China as a dessert. And then at the background it says through this we can still rule the world. So that's the kind of a cartoon that's being created last week by one Chinese. I'm not sure. It's one of the brainwashed artists, and then you got a lot of Chinese media put this cartoon on their website, and all talking about that. And so basically, you see how the direction of China's propaganda department is going. They're basically painting the G7 plus India, Australia. They are the enemy of China. So that's what has been going on. And also, as I mentioned in the first hour, China passed anti-foreign sanctions law on June 10th. Basically, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. All the people and organizations, including the Westerners and Western corporations that's doing business in China, you all have to follow Chinese government effort. Once the Chinese government take any counter measures against the sanctions against China by the Western world. So I wonder. See, one thing I'm thinking about. So say Tesla.
Exactly
and
what I was just
Apple.
going to add.
And Apple.
Yes, Tesla.
Microsoft.
And all of them. What was it Victor Davis Hanson said? The naive that think that they're going to go to China.
You mean the useful idiot?
Yeah, useful idiots. And they think they're going to... think of how quickly Xi Jinping could own Apple.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think of how many minutes would it take for Xi Jinping to take over Apple? 10 minutes?
7.
Yeah,
7 minutes.
Yeah, I actually agree with Amy. I think it'd be closer to 5 minutes.
Well, all he needs to do is just pick up phone or call, right? Just like what was the Ant Group by Alibaba, Jack Ma.
Yeah.
Well, all Xi Jinping need to just say a word. Done.
Finished.
Right? The company is gone.
Yeah. Couple of the things that we were talking about in the break, Nana and I were talking about the fact that the United States has something like, $24 trillion in debt right now?
Yeah, well, by now it would be close to 30, right? After all these stimulus checks.
Okay, let's say $30 trillion.
Yeah.
China owns over almost $1.5 trillion of that debt.
Close to $1.5 trillion. Yes.
So that's China owns 1/28 of our debt.
Well, which
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, which just make me think that former President Trump's idea was pretty good. I mean, China need to be responsible for this pandemic, right? Or at least we can say we'll hold these debts until we find out what is the true origin of the pandemic.
Yeah. We already know. Everybody already knows, even those that deny the fact that this was a made-in-China virus. We all know that.
Well, it was an escaped-in-China virus for sure. We do know that.
What people don't know, though, is, and I think Victor Davis Hanson did a good job of pointing this out, was that a lot of this, the gain-of-function research was done here in the United States and exported to China. Now, and Hanson also pointed out that they exported it to a laboratory that was in effect run by the People's Liberation Army.
And not only that, it was not run as a level 4 lab. It was basically operating somewhere aron level 2. It wasn't very sanitary or anything else.
What our scientists like Barrack and at University of North Carolina, what they were doing was learning how to make the nuclear bomb of viruses, and they gave it to the People's Liberation Army. They gave it to them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw the picture of the Wuhan lab, the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
I did.
It's a 2-story building.
Yeah.
And then based on the news report, they have one full story. It's doing the civilian project. Another whole story is doing the military research project.
Yeah.
Think about what kind of military research project they're doing over there, and think about why only 2 days after they locked down the city of Wuhan, they send their top biochemical warfare military general, that's Dr. Chen Wei, to take over control of the Wuhan lab. I mean, I think that it's clear. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Oh, it's crystal clear.
Oh, yeah, clear. They really can destroy the evidence.
Yes. So what really is not known, to me, the only thing that is not known is whether the release was accidental or deliberate. That's really, to me, that's the only real mystery.
It's one of the key elements we need to know worldwide.
Yeah.
Certainly the countries around the world need to know how it got out,
now,
for sure.
Let me ask you this, Captain Billy. Can you give me one good reason why the CCP would not have deliberately released that virus?
Well, the first thing I can think of is this. It would kill a lot of Chinese citizens immediately. But
they don't care.
But I was just about to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. The first thing is it would kill a lot of Chinese people, but then again, the communist government in China doesn't care about that.
And especially, it's only killing, most likely it's only killing the old age people. Do you think they care? I mean, it's like China. It's right now they try to encourage people to have like a second child, and a third child, and then they will force you to have it because of their one-child policy practice of all these 40 years. They really have facing the age,
too many old
the
people now,
issue.
aging.
But by the way, if you want to chime in on our conversation, give us a call at 479-1080. We're talking about the first hour of our program, a discussion with Stanford professor. You heard that right. Stanford professor Victor Davis Hanson. He also works at the University of California. The California State University in Fresno. He talks all over the world, and he scared once again, we had a guest who scared the bejeebers out of me.
And guess what else? He was my classmate at UC Santa Cruz.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, Michael, you should say that earlier.
Yeah.
We graduated the same year.
Wow.
Wow.
What happened to you? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, what happened to me? Good question. What happened to me?
He got stuck in the radio vortex like I did.
You know what? He did an incredible thing because he taught the classics. And one of the things that I really wanted to ask him, and maybe we can do this next time, is if he sees anything in history that is comparable to what we're going through.
What a great question. That's a very interesting question.
Yeah. You know, next time. We'll get him next time, right?
I want to ask him a question. Is how many professors and have a non-liberal view still can lecture in a university?
Yeah. Right. How many are allowed in, right? How many are allowed?
Yeah, really.
Well, you know, I think if you're, it depends on your field. You know, if you're an expert in physics, for instance, physics is physics. You know what I mean? Physics is not really...
Not anymore.
No, the basic physics I'm talking about is, you know, it's mathematics. Math is math.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. They are changing that. Math must be politically correct now to be math.
Yeah, but if you're trying to get a spacecraft to Mars, physics is physics. I'm sorry, they can't change that.
Yes. Okay.
Well, now
Yes,
anything
they
can be changed.
They can't.
Think about traditionally.
They can't change it and get
You
a
know,
spacecraft
Billy,
to Mars.
Well, think about this. Anything can be changed nowadays. In the traditional way, man is a man, woman is a woman. But now we have so just go to any of the public restaurants. They have a triangle there, which is a blank. You know, it used to be called unisex, and now they don't even call unisex. There's no even sex anymore. So it's we don't know who we are anymore. Basically.
Can we ask the audience a question when they call in?
Okay.
The question that I would like to ask is that who do you think the United States should ally itself with in world politics? Russia or China?
That's a great question Michael just asked.
I'm afraid of both of them. I think Putin's a scary dude.
Well, I think we can try to drag Russia away from China.
Oh.
And then what do we have? Now we have Vladimir Putin as our friend?
Well, maybe.
Better than having
just like in the olden days during the Cold War times, Soviet Union was our enemy. When China, as a communist nation, we treat them as a friend.
Do you think Putin's going to bang his boot on the table?
Well, think about this. Yesterday, President Biden was meeting with Putin. Right?
Yeah, no, it
was.
But it was a short meeting.
It was a short meeting, but however...
Apparently it was 45 minutes shorter than all the news networks thought it was going to be.
Well, it's still 93 minutes long. And also, guess what happened? Putin is a well-known guy who always come to the meeting late. But yesterday, he was there earlier. See, Putin is well known. Every meeting he go, sometimes he will be late for hours. Last time I remember one time he was meeting with Germany's Prime Minister Merkel, and he was late for 4 hours. He was a well-known guy, always late for the meeting. But yesterday he was there earlier.
Why?
Well, I think
more time.
Some changes it's going to happen, and I'm optimistic about that. Putin is going to have to make a choice. Who is going to
Yeah. There you go.
Well, let's check in with Nancy. Nancy's called China Uber Alice. You're on the radio. Thanks for calling.
Okay, thank you. Well, I sure enjoy your program, and I appreciate all you folks that have gone through what you've gone through. But there's one thing that I'm going to change subject just a little bit. How I understand that China bought Hillshire Farms. Now, how much property and businesses do they own in the United States?
I'm not sure about Hillshire Farms, but I know they bought Smithfield Farms.
Yeah, I think you're mistaken. I think it was Smithfield Farms, not Hillshire Farms.
Yeah, it was Smithfield. Well, anyway, I want to know how many. I figure you people could figure that out.
With respect to how many businesses, who knows? But I think what the Chinese Communist Party really learned that allowed them to flower and become so ultimately powerful was that they learned that they didn't have to buy businesses. They didn't have to even run them.
Yes.
All they had to do was control them.
Okay, well, I want to know.
It's a good question, but we don't have the statistics available for you right now. I don't think...
we'll have to look that one up. That's actually a lot of research.
It's a lot of research. I actually searched for the information before. I couldn't find the exact number. I don't think they,
it's not like they want us to know that information.
Right. I don't think the United States government actually do that kind of a censor and provide that kind of...
I think they own Facebook.
Well, I think
they own Microsoft, and I think they own Apple.
Well, you're talking about influence, not actual assets.
Control.
Yeah. No, control. Yeah. So I was shocked because my bank is Bank of America. I didn't think about it. Lots of people. All of a sudden, I online look at the location. They say that Bank of America is owned by Chinese. It's a question, right? So I read about it. It says that just like say control, because they make a deal with the China Construction Bank. So lots of money, they funding for the Chinese construction. And they are partnership with that. So we're talking about the control.
Okay.
So the surface they're not own, you know.
That's the kind of thing I want to know, and like who owns Pebble Beach and other places in our country.
Well,
the Japanese used to own
the Japanese,
Pebble Beach, but they sold it.
They lost it. They lost. Yeah.
The Japanese owned a lot of the hotels in Hawaii for a long time too.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try to find out information for you, Nancy, and get it the next time you're listening. Maybe we'll have the information by then. But it is a little bit of research we have to do.
I know. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you for calling. Let's check in now with Leroy. Leroy's calling us from Gilroy. I imagine Gilroy's a little warm today.
It's, yes.
Need the garlic ice cream.
Yeah, I do that. Right to the point. Fear. I don't think that the virus is out there on a physiological level, but the thousands of years, the emperors, the kings, the rulers have used fear to control people. And there's two things I know, being in combat in Vietnam and working against the communists. They use fear, and there's two things you have to know about fear. It makes people do things they normally wouldn't do, or it holds people back from doing the things they ought to. Those are two things about fear. And that's one thing about the virus. It's making people do things they normally wouldn't do, and it's holding other people back from doing the things they ought to. What do you think about that?
I think that's a very, very good point, Leroy.
Yeah, fears we're talking about. That's something that we really see how this pandemic is really created all around the world. And I talked to, and it's interesting. I talked to many of the overseas Chinese after they went out of China for decades. Inside their heart, they still have fears. I mean,
Amy talks about how she was treated as a young person, and it still freaks me out.
Yeah.
I'm sure it freaks her out
I'm
too.
not kidding. I tell you something. Today, listen to the professor talk about the infantry to everything, whatever. I tell you something. I'm going October probably go to Hungary, and then my friend and sent me a message. He said that you're gonna be careful over there. He said. I said, why? I'm not going to China. He said that Chinese people there, they control Hungary, their economy. You gotta be careful. It's true, not just joking. Wow.
And guess what? This new anti-foreign sanctions law that just passed by Chinese regime, and they're going to make all the corporations that's doing business in China from the Western world hell of scared.
Yeah. Well, look. Go ahead.
It's not so much that they have used the virus to take people out. In other words, depopulate the world. But when you have control over people, then you can rule the masses.
Right.
And the two things that I talked about is what is happening today. It's making people do things they normally wouldn't do, or it's holding them back from doing the things they ought to. And look at what's happening right now in all of the world. That's fear is controlling what's happening politically and economically throughout the world.
So, Leroy, what you're basically saying is that China, in the release of this virus around the world, has instilled fear in a good portion of the world's population.
That's how you control the people.
And the interesting thing was that that our guest last hour said they're no longer afraid of hiding that fact. We're going to frighten you, and we're going to let you know we're frightening you, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it because you're going to be frightened.
Leroy, thank you for the call and bringing up two very good points. We appreciate that.
I rest my case. God bless and keep you safe.
Thank you. All right, let's move on. Who's been hanging on here the longest? That would be... Wow. That would be Dick in Santa Cruz. Let me push the right button here. Dick, you're on KSCO. Thanks for waiting.
Hey guys, that was a great interview. I was surprised, first of all, that Professor Hanson didn't say anything about, or he was evasive and kind of vague when he was speaking of canceling the debt payments on the Treasury notes that China owes. Now, that's my first question. Did he say we wouldn't do that, basically?
Yes, he said it isn't going to happen, so I'm not going to comment on it.
Yeah, he didn't say he didn't say that he was against the idea. He didn't say that. He just said it's near impossible.
Well, what he said was I don't consider any idea that I know can't happen, is what he said.
Yeah, he said 0 chance.
He said 0 chance.
Zero. He said 0 chance.
This is like wow. This is like two blind men at either end of the elephant. I mean, I don't know what he said either. It was very curious because, I thought you might follow up on last week. You had that excellent guest on the general talking about strategic things, and at the end, you said, do you have anything left to talk about? And he said, oh yeah, China has nuclear EMPs inside of satellites going over all over the world. All over the world. Can hit any city. And my comments last week was, if you remember, do not cancel the debt payments until we harden our grid, or at least tell the Chinese that it's hardened. And I would have really liked, maybe if you follow up with Professor Hanson, to broach that subject again with him. I mean, like Michael Olson just said, what is the reason why China would not release the virus on purpose? And you guys didn't come up with anything, really.
Do you have something?
Yeah, do you have an answer to that question? Because I've been thinking about it ever since he asked it, and I'm open to suggestions.
No, that's just it. They have no reason. They have all kinds of plus reasons to release it on purpose and let all their Yuan students and faculty and everybody else fly to the United States immediately to the Bay Area. Now they're saying that it was over here in December. I don't know if you guys are up on that. December 2019.
I have it in November 2019. I'm certain.
Oh, there you go. Even earlier, there was some guy with a blood sample. He gave blood up in Seattle.
Yeah, I was going to say the guy in Seattle, I think, was the first known case, wasn't he? That was way early.
That's January 19th. January 19th of 2020.
Yeah. So Michael Olson is absolutely correct and on spot. They hated Trump. They knew this would disrupt them. They got the letter with all the university guys, all the virologists to sign it, with their arms bent behind their back, twisting it for, federal grant money, to say that Trump and everybody else that says it came from the lab is a conspiracy nut. And then they buried everything that Trump said after that, took him off Facebook, every place else, and basically that was right before the election. This was totally coordinated. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't ask me what we could do, but I mean,
there's only one thing the world can do.
Decouple from China.
It's stop buying made in China. That's the only thing we can do. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said last week, that the Congress just passed that U.S. R&D bill that was, what was it, Michael? $400 billion. They're saying it was huge, and that will promote, because right now the supply chains are all broken, and I hope they're jumping on that. It sounds like Congress might be ahead of the curve for once. I'm not,
Don't bet the farm.
Okay.
Dick, don't bet the farm on that one. Hey, listen, we got a full board, and I'm going to move on. But thanks for calling.
Thanks so much.
All right, let's move on to Lane. Where's Lane calling from? Corlitos. Thanks for waiting, and you're on China Uber Alice.
Oh yes, Something occurred to me when I was listening to the gentleman that you had on the first hour.
Professor Hanson.
Thank you very much. Yes, I didn't get his name. I had walked in late, but the whole conversation was so interesting. And my question, it's not really a question, it's a comment, is so small compared to the ones I've been listening to, but it is curious to me. It seems very difficult to be able to get into China and spend time. But I don't understand why privately there's so many families here that are getting paid by wealthy Chinese parents to send their children here.
Good question, and I've wondered about that myself.
Well, that was a good question. Now, I did a little research on this. First of all, for example, California, University of California, in the last academic year, 9% of the total students in the 10 campus of University of California are Chinese students from China. That's more than, any other international student. That's less than the combined total student from the rest of the world other than China. Now, and also here is why I found out. Back in 2005, based on my own research, the 10 campus of University of California form an alliance with 10 top universities in China. It's called 10 plus 10 alliance. And what the alliance did was to accept the come to United States, come to University of California to study, to do research, paid by the Chinese government grant. So the Chinese government pay all these students coming to the United States to do their study.
But why? That's the question.
Well, you already see why. You already see why. The cozy relationship with between China and the California universities, and it's not only in California. And it's all over the United States. But pretty much all the top universities.
Let me ask Lane's question another way, okay? Because I think Lane has a great question here. Let me ask it another way. If China thinks they're so good and superior, that is the mindset, right? They want to take over the world. Why is it that they just don't teach their own students at home? Why do they send them to Western?
They want a stealing.
Well,
it's
that's it.
Way.
That's it. There are a lot of idea of science and technologies in the lab of UC, and as well as in all the labs in the top universities here in the United States.
So they're sent here as stealers of technology? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, there you go, Lane. That's the answer. That's the quick answer to the question.
Well, yes, but going back to the second gentleman that you were speaking with, Vernon, sorry. He brought up some very good points about China. Anyway, the point is he talked about fear. He talked about, and I do believe that fear, look at how people are still running around with their masks on even though they've got their shot. So I'm just saying that, yes, fear is a big human nature element. It's fight or flight response, etc. But I think the other thing is that Americans sell their soul for money, and they don't even think about what they're doing before they decide to do it.
Lane, I completely agree with that point of view. My grandfather was a certified public accountant in San Francisco, and he told me when I was a little boy, if I want to know the truth about something, follow the money.
Money. Yes, that's right. So that's the other side of it. And I think people are very well, honestly, I think they must be very well-meaning, but, these kids coming here, I think these are private arrangements. So there's got to be a reason for that. And I wonder if the people that are doing that actually question it. So anyway, that's all I had to say.
Well, thank you for the call, Lane. We appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, let's move on to David in, I believe David's in Las Lomas. David, you're on China Uber Alice.
You've got Colonel Terry.
Oh, what did I do? Punch the wrong button? Well, okay, Terry, we'll take your call and we'll ask David to hang on and get him in a minute. What's your take?
And first of all, I'll repeat my admonition. Call it Red China in every instance, and call it the Communist Party of Red China as the evil villain. Hello?
Yeah, you're
okay.
On.
All right, so yes, call it Red China. And should we just have an embargo on red Chinese products, especially all of those that are identified with stealing U.S. and Western technology, which tens of thousands are, patents and others? And there is, lastly, let me emphasize, there's a couple of lawsuits ongoing in U.S. federal court where the rules of evidence, the proceedings are quite fair and documented, accusing Red China of releasing by negligence or design the COVID-19 virus. So we should let those proceed in our courts and perhaps acquire a good deal of evidence here and elsewhere proving they were negligent or they had a bomb project or a weapons project in parallel with it, and therefore they owe the rest of us the trillions of dollars they should be obligated to reimburse us.
All right, Terry, we appreciate the call. Thanks for the information. I will say this. Good luck. Anybody who owns an iPhone wants to do business with China because they love those damn things. And anybody who wants to, look, there's so many products I can delve into that all have Chinese parts or were made in China or were, farmed out to some small manufacturer in China. They can make widgets better than we can. I'm sorry to say. Anybody who's looking at an iPhone right now would understand what I'm talking about. So good luck with trying to stop trade about all at once with China. I just don't think that's going to happen. David has been waiting in Las Lomas. So if I push the right button, David will be on with us. Thank you, David, for waiting.
You're welcome. Earlier you were talking about the pork Smithfield. That was the largest pork industry in the U.S.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
That's a strategical disadvantage to have some foreign country that doesn't like you to control a lot of protein that would be necessary to survive in worst-case scenarios.
That is very true. I think in this particular case, however, I think China might have bought that large pork producer in the United States to help feed its own population.
That's what I'm getting at. Why would American awareness, ability to let a strategic food supply to be kind of into the control of your enemy? That's a little odd.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was a bad move by Smithfield. I really do. I don't think it was beneficial to. But once again, the people who own that company, once again, follow the money.
And then on the other thing, this is where people will label me as a fanatical, insane person. But I did some homework, and I've got emails of sending people letters of concern, what I was finding in my own research, that as far as in early January, myself discovered there was something odd going on, and I found out, and I've got documents on my computer with Anthony Fauci's signature, because Obama in 2014 said get it out of the country. Barrett was working on it, and guess what they were doing? With a virus from China, a bat virus, they were cranking it up with turbochargers and headers and all kinds of high compression pistons. So we basically developed and sent to Wuhan lab. I got documentation, peer-reviewed articles. And so the virus that we've all been fighting around the world, we kind of started it here in our own North Carolina lab.
There is that information that a lot of folks are pointing to, that we can't point all the blame to China. We helped we helped develop it ourselves. At least that's what some of the material says.
Trust the science, right? Anyway.
All right. Well,
great.
David, we appreciate the call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Amy, were you as frightened about our little interview in the first hour as I am?
First hour?
Yeah, the first hour with Dr. Hanson.
Professor? Yeah.
Yeah, he frightened me a little bit when he just came out and told it like it was, man.
Yeah. So, I would like to see something positive. Maybe whatever in the horizon we can see some hope.
Well, I think the hope is the awareness that all of our guests, we're trying to shed some light on the fact that this country that has so many people and has so many manufacturing assets providing the world commerce, they're not our friend, particularly.
Yeah.
Well, I think our past China policy it's really based on a rosy picture about China, about the nature of the Chinese communist regime. I personally really appreciate President Trump, who turned this China policy around and led this China policy in an entire different direction. And I also really happy to see President Biden follow the same direction. At least we are going to a right direction now, and maybe we don't know how fast we are going to get there. But however, I think it's important that we keep working towards a right direction instead of a wrong direction. And if we believe something wrong, the result is not going to be what we hope for.
It's interesting that you point out that the new administration is following the old administration's hard line, which I find that surprising.
I think this is a bipartisan thing. You look at the Congress, there's a lot of voices from both parties really supporting Taiwan, really supporting the human rights in Hong Kong, really going after the genocide in China against the Uyghurs.
Yeah, the Uyghurs,
Right.
And also, I think Tibet is sort of it's a quiet fight, but the people of Tibet have long said they don't want to be controlled by anybody.
That's right, and also you see that the tariffs.
Yes,
the tariffs. Trump got a lot of criticism for put up these tariffs on the things from China, but now, hey, it's still there.
Yeah, they are still there.
Still there, or with nobody mentioning it, so still there, or still same rate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I think he just proved that Trump was right.
I think Amy's right to be skeptical about what's going to happen, but at least for the moment, we're still following the same line, the same track.
That's right. I think it's a good direction. It's a right direction, but it just worked in a little different way.
Yeah.
See, Trump was like a CEO, right? His background was a CEO. He said, "Oh, I will just do it by executive order."
Right.
Right. While on the new administration, they have to go the political way. Passing all these legislation.
Well, the thing though is, if you go the political way, then it can't be undone by a future administration. See that. I think that's what they're trying to figure out, right? Anyway, Jim has called. Jim's calling from, I believe, Santa Cruz. And if I've pushed the right button, Jim should be on China Über Alice.
Yeah, hi. I just want to say this kind of reminds me of, or it could be, when 9/11 happened, San Jose Mercury News had all these headlines from all different papers around the country, right? And the one that stuck out to me and the one that I really thought was true, it said, and I think this is the same situation, says America's finally eating the bread they've been baking for 20 years. And I think this fits this perfectly. You know what I mean? It just fits it. We've caused it. We let it happen. Now we're eating it.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly make a good point.
It's an excellent point. We allowed China to join WTO back in
2000. That's right. And we did all that crap, and we did all that crap in the Middle East before too. That made that happen. You can't say we didn't. Sure, it was bad they did it, but we caused a lot of it by us sticking our nose in everywhere.
Yeah.
And then we have such a high brow of ourselves to get on people. Oh, you're trying to get in our election. You're trying to do this. Shit. How many people have we put?
Well, that's the end of that. Hit the dump button when you say the bad words. Anyway, yeah. Please, we don't mind you being passionate, but you can't say any of those bad words because that just doesn't work. Anyway,
well, welcome to call us back.
Well, he makes a good point, though. You know,
it's an excellent point.
What is it my mother used to say? You made your bed, now you get to lie in it? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She usually said that after my brother and I did something particularly heinous when we were on the ranch. But you know, and I fully get that. You know, that's the well, you know, America. Look, we've done a lot of really great things around the world. We've become a really good country in many ways, and around the world, we've also made a few blunders. You know, we've we've occasionally backed the wrong person, you know, in foreign countries, and it comes back to bite us.
Well, with a good wish, right?
Yeah,
it was with a good wish, but it was just, you know, it's just far from reality. It's really unrealistic.
Yep, that's true. It's exactly true. And so I guess what we're trying to do here is point out where things can get better and how things can be, you know, I would like to someday, I'm still optimistic. I would like to have a nice relationship with the people of China.
Of course, we want to have.
I don't much like their government, but
the good relationship with people in China. You know,
at least Nansu can go back to China.
Right. Well, of course, I'm American, right? I've thinking I'm American ever since 1989. You know, after the Tiananmen Square massacre. So anyway, Chinese people, they have a good tradition with a good culture, and the Chinese Communist Party has been doing every way they are able to and everything they want to destroy the tradition, destroy the Confucianism, and you know, because what they practice has nothing to do with traditional Chinese culture. What they practice in China is it's a Marxism and communism, and you know.
Well, you said it best in an earlier program when you said that they destroyed the giant Confucius statue when they wanted to get rid of the traditional teachings of Confucian.
That's
Confucianism.
Right.
Yeah. And then they wait a minute. We might have we made a mistake here. Let's piece the statue back together because we need it for tourism.
That's right. And that's what they did. And think about this. What the hell they're doing here and teaching, have a Confucius Institute here in the United States and the Western world teaching the Confucianism, while in China they don't even practice Confucianism themselves.
That's my point. I mean, they practice tourism.
Not just the tourism.
No,
right?
I'm being facetious, but I mean that is the main reason why they rebuilt the Confucian statue.
That's right.
So that they can show it to the tourists.
Confucius can make the money. That's the only purpose.
Well,
Confucius statue can make money.
Right.
Wow. Well, anyway, if you want to find out more about what we frequently talk about on this program, go to our website. That's ChinaUberAlice.com. Past show archives, the material that the news articles that we read in preparation for the show were all there. Links to various bits of information and whatnot. And if you want to find out more about what Nan does, the Epic Times is a great way to find out about what Nan and his colleagues are constantly doing. By the way, did they ever get the printing press back up in Hong Kong?
Yes, they did.
Finally.
They did. So finally, and with a lot of obstacles still there.
Yeah.
The newspaper deliver people getting threat every day, and then the reporters of Epoch Times in Hong Kong getting threat and abuse all the time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And of course, Amy is our
Well, she's our cultural expert on how it was like to grow up in a communist country. She tells the great stories. Amy, we always appreciate your time. Let's take our last break of the program, and we'll be back to wrap it up.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Breaking news. Freedom is ours now. Learn how Sunday at 2. Join Christian Science lecturer and trained Audubon naturalist Patricia Cohan Woodard from Dallas, Texas, for a spirited conversation with real-life examples of how we can realize our freedom right now. Patricia's free talk is at 2, Sunday at Christian Science Church, 3200 Center Street in Soquel. Childcare is available. For more information, search Christian Science Soquel. Freedom is ours right now.
I'm Jim Chubb with Pacific Inland. Our NMLS 361091. If you're interested in buying or refinancing, I suggest you take advantage of my reliable expert advice. I'm at 818-7700. I help you make informed mortgage choices with zero selling. See my Sunday column in the Sentinel. We have a 30-year fixed at 3.375 APR with no closing costs. Some restrictions apply. Call me, 818-7700 for individual pricing. That's 818-7700.
Hi, folks. This is Stephanie from Ben Lomond Market. We're a family-owned and operated full-service market here to meet all the needs of you and your family, offering old-fashioned meat department, a full-service deli with homemade hot and cold quality selections for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, freshly baked cakes, cookies, breads, along with locally baked gourmet goods. For those looking for a special dietary need such as gluten-free or sugar-free, we have it. A full assortment of conventional and organic fruits and vegetables, gourmet cheeses, local wines. We also do catering. Let Mill Street Catering Events take care of all of your food preparation. Ben Lomond Market, here to meet all the needs of you and your family. Local people, local products, a family tradition since 1946. Thank you for shopping with us at Ben Lomond Market.
Our store hours at Ben Lomond Market are Sunday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Hey, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. Thanks a lot for tuning in. You know, you've heard me talk about this amazing new machine called the TRT machine, or the Tissue Regenerative Technology machine. We've had such amazing results, and I really want you to experience it. So I'm still offering the $49 special. I'm going to play a little snip from my friend and patient Noel. He's a diabetic patient. Listen to what he has to say about his treatment with the TRT machine.
You don't realize how much you use your toes for balance until there's no feeling in them. And so I've got the feeling back in my toes, and my balance is greatly improved. Definitely recommend it.
The Tissue Regenerative Technology machine. I highly recommend you check it out. If you want to go to trtllc.com, you can find out about this. You definitely want to give it a try. Give our office a call, 459-9990, 831-459-9990.
Well, we've got one call at the last minute of the show. Miles I don't know where Miles is calling from. Miles, you're on China Uber Alice. We got just a couple of seconds left in the show.
Yeah, this is actually Richard, and I was asking about Miles Kwok, K-W-O-K. I don't know if the people you're talking with know who he is. He's the exiled billionaire from China.
I've not. I don't know.
Maya Guo. Yes, you're talking about Maya Guo. Yes.
Yes. He has a lot of interesting things to say. He's interviewed by Kyle Bass from the Hyman Financial. They do an hour sit-down, and he talks. He actually predicted Alibaba, the owner of Alibaba, disappearing. A lot of people, like very wealthy Chinese people, disappearing. He's very anti-CCP. And
maybe
so
we'll get him on the program if we can. We're out of time. Thanks for calling, though, and bringing that up. Okay?
Well, keep that in mind. Thank you for the suggestion.
We're out of time. We want to thank Amy Howe and of course Nan-Su for their expertise. And of course, we really want to thank Victor Davis Hanson, our guest. He is from Stanford University and other universities around the California area, and he gave us some great information today, as did Michael Olson. Thanks all of you for listening. ChinaUberAlice.com. Please visit our website. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey.